Wild weather, sickness and engineering issues are forcing flight cancellations, and Air New Zealand says there could be more to come. Meantime, Consumer New Zealand warns that refusing to refund its customers could put the airline in breach of the rules. It brought back its COVID-19 or sickness flexibility policy to help ease some of the pressure faced by airlines in the first weeks of the school holidays. But more than 2,500 people by Monday evening, that's last night, had swapped their tickets for credit. There have been cancellations all over the place. And just anecdotally, I know, talking to members of my family, some have been trying to fly around for various reasons this week. It's chaos out there. But did it need to be? And could we have returned, if you like, to full flight operability in a more smooth, managed and, I guess, controlled fashion? Well, one group that says we could have is the New Zealand Airline Pilots Association, and their president, Andrew Ridling, joins us now. Andrew, welcome to the program. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Good morning, Sean. Thanks for the invitation.
All right. As well as the weather and COVID and everything, are we short of pilots in New Zealand right now?
No, we're not. No, we've got plenty of pilots. When we went into COVID, we worked very closely with government and the airlines, Qantas in New Zealand, Jetstar, to ensure pilots were furloughed rather than laid off and sent in other places. So we've created ourselves a bit of a battery bank of experienced pilots. And when you say short of pilots or short of experienced pilots, we're not. And they are coming back into all of the airlines as quickly as we can get them back. Obviously, safety is the main driver. You can't just pick someone off the street who's been driving, a harvester for the last 2.5 years and say, go and take an aeroplane to Los Angeles for me. So those pilots are needing to go through 3.5 months of training. And with the minimum notice given to all the airlines about border openings and requirements, it's probably the unexpected pent-up demand that has happened globally. Pressure is on. But I know those airlines and I know the industry is doing the best it can.
Okay, could it have done better? Could we have prepared for this better? And as you say, pent-up demand, everyone I know who isn't on the breadline is jumping on a plane to go somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that was unexpected, but that's not just a New Zealand problem. That was globally unexpected. Europe, the UK have had to close down 10% of their services. You've probably heard the story of baggage in Europe. Where
no, I haven't. Tell us about that.
Don't expect your bags to turn up with you if you're going anywhere near Heathrow or any of the major airports.
Why is that?
They just don't have the people on the ground. They don't have the staff, and it's just not happening over there. The US situation is a lack of pilots. That's what's really made the global scare for pilots, but they didn't set things up the same way we did. It's sort of now producing the position that we're in now.
Could we have done better? Could we have planned for this better?
Well, the only thing that I think that we could have done better from an airline perspective is knowing the date earlier. But would that have just pushed the whole gambit further back? Who knows? The date of opening was March. 3 months to get a pilot up and running is to June, mid-June, and we're running at full throttle now. So I think from an airline perspective, from a pilot's perspective and an airline perspective, we couldn't actually be doing it any better.
Yet we do seem to have, particularly internally and domestically, a fair bit of travel chaos. What do you put that down to then?
Well, I think your last weather report probably put that out there. Weather's not a good thing in New Zealand. When we get hit, our airports like Wellington, where you are, Queenstown, Dunedin, they get hit fairly hard, and obviously delays sort of extend from there. For example, in Wellington, once you get to 60 knots, a baggage trolley gets airborne. So things all have to be locked down and slowed down. And that's the issues we're starting to face at the moment. Of course, there's COVID, and we talk about COVID, but a lot of people got the flu at the moment, and we don't want them at work either. So there are all issues are all coming together, and I hate to use the word perfect storm because that's unfair, but this is what's been happening overseas as well.
Prices are very high too domestically. Is that simply a result of the reality of having to pay to get things up and running again?
Well, actually, costing for us has been a driver, and we've spoken to both the Ministry of Transport and government about it. We don't think it's very well understood out there that, for example, Barnes, which is they call themselves the airport, I think, associations, they looked at and did a costing structure just prior to COVID. And a lot of people understand that 51% of the price of a ticket across the Tasman is made up of government agency costs. You then take the airlines' costs out of that and the fueling where it is at the moment, not a lot of margin left for the airlines.
Yeah.
We've been pushing as we come through this that the travelling public needs to know what they're paying for. And hidden in those costs, hidden in those ticket prices are horrendous government and agency costings. And those costings are going up. Airways has decided to put its fees up by in excess of 17%. Met Service are looking at putting their fees up. We've got AVSEC that are looking at around 50%, we've been told. So it's a matter of trying to get control, I think, of costs across the board while we get this industry back on its feet.
Do you think the government therefore needs to look at all those added charges and perhaps come up with a strategy to reduce them?
That's exactly what we have offered. We believe that the Ministry of Transport, obviously as the central agency, needs to probably take all of these agencies under their wing and make sure that there's an even cost distribution, coming forward out of COVID. Otherwise, we just don't have any control of these cost increases.
Do you think the airlines are doing all they can to treat their customers well, and we're having this growing story that's building about the difficulty of getting a refund, getting a new flight, and I'm picking up some anger out there amongst the flying public?
Yeah, I will go all the way to say the Qantases, the Jetsstars, and Air New Zealand are going above and beyond. The staff they're trying to employ, the people they're getting on board, it's taking time, and obviously when you get weather like you have outside and the COVID things, more and more people want to make phone calls. More and more people want answers to their questions, and that sort of compounds itself into the difficulties that we're seeing at the moment.
What about your members, the pilots themselves? How are they coping as individuals? Because at the end of the day, you want them to be in a fairly good space when they go to work in the morning.
Yeah, they're good. We're doing really well. We're seeing positive things. We're seeing our industry that was in a coma, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. We were flying to destinations locked in hotel rooms, not being able to leave, eating quarantine food in China, which was a bowl of rice, coming home and being locked in hotels by our own government. And a lot of areas we're seen as scourges on the industry. So for us, it's a positive time. We're getting back to work. We're getting our people back, which is the most important thing that I've seen. We've got some amazing people working in the airline industry that are passionate about what they do, and especially pilots. In fact, you don't get into the industry unless you're passionate.
Yeah, that is for real. And Andrew, when do you think, do you think the government will reduce these charges that are pushing up prices to the consumer? Have they given you any indication that they're listening or sympathetic to your position?
No, not at this stage. It's only been the last few months that we've been trying to get a consortium together to discuss it, to ensure that it's really having a global look at all the pricing structures throughout the industry. You can't have an SOE like Airways decide, we're just going to make a greater return to the shareholder here, or we have an AVSEC that decides we need more money to expand, and they just put the prices up. There needs to be some oversight of that across the industry, because we were in a coma. This industry was in a coma. Thousands of aeroplanes were parked around the world. Billions of dollars of assets have been shut down for 2 years. There needs to be a recovery of those costs.
Look, I thank you very much indeed for your time, Andrew, and giving us that insight. And we will talk to you again, no doubt, in the future. That is Andrew Ridling for the New Zealand Airline Pilots Association. Look, we've got time for calls today, and I know there are lots of you out there who are dealing with issues around travel around the country today. It is the school holidays. The weather is rubbish. So if you've had an issue with a flight, ring and tell us about it. Ring and tell us about your travel woes. And equally, If an airline has gone the distance for you and sorted you out, ring in and give them a bouquet rather than a brickbat.